one of the CSMs here. Thanks, Adam. One of the CSMs here at Instructure as well with Adam. And so we really put this group together for those of you who weren't part of the original posse, shall we call ourselves. We really put this together because there's previously been user groups across Instructure in different sectors, primarily in the K-12 and more recently in APAC in the higher ed space as well. And we've never had a dedicated space for vocational education providers to come together. And we are a bit of a unique bunch. So it was a good time and a good opportunity in restructuring our user groups here in Asia Pacific to start looking at some options for vocational education more broadly and all the different types of providers that can come together and talk under that banner. And so we kicked off in, Damien, you might be able to correct me, but I want to say October last year. With a bit of an intro session, and Damien's done an amazing job as our chair since then. From Mr. Wed, a very long-term user of Canvas and a real advocate for training in the platform. So that's really a little bit about how the group came together. Previously, there's been a lot of, not competition necessarily, but there hasn't been a lot of sharing going on between vet organisations using Canvas, and it's just a bit of we thought it was a missed opportunity that we could really look to improve that space. So that's really where the group came from. We've met every month except for Christmas since then, and it's been amazing. Even some meetings where we've had a smaller group come, we've had some regulars that come each time, and we're also seeing it grow with new faces most meetings as well. So really excited about the sort of inception of the group and where it's heading. And with that sort of change in direction, we've actually decided from an Instructure perspective that the more appropriate way to facilitate the group moving forward would be with Adam and our priority services team. So I'll certainly still be jumping in and attending where I can because it's a passion point for me. But the priority services team will be taking over from the instruction side moving forward. So the format will be the same in terms of working in the user group space in the community. I'm sure everyone has some opinions on how the new community looks. And so the minutes and all of that sort of stuff will still be recorded in that way. But that's a bit of a change in terms of our side of the fence. So Adam, I don't know if you want to go from here in terms of what you'd like to say. You're on mute.
Once again, this is how the correction process rolls. So that's quite fine. I'm glad. Oh, look, everyone's laughing. That's good. That's a good start. That's how I prefer with a bit of laughter and see how we go. No, so one of the reasons, obviously, that we are focusing is that the priority services model, even though that we are still CSMs, same role of everything like that, we do tend to deal with a lot more of the RTO market at this particular space. So the whole point of this is doing that is if we bring the user group in together with the inbound queries that we're dealing with, it just gives us a better feel to then go to people like product or go to people like that based on the discussions that we are having. Also, we're kind of we've moved the community group into one central area. So now, there won't be a priority services one and an APAC one. We're just going to put everything under APAC to try and encourage just a better pool of resources, because some of the things that you might be asking might be just functionality related. And we want to make sure you understand that, but understanding the concept of what you're doing for your particular market and then putting that into Canvas terminology is something that this group is going to be really good at doing. And hopefully after this as well, we can start developing, like myself and the team, we're going to be looked at developing specific content that we're then going to share in the Canvas community. So in other words, it'll become a growing resource hub for when we'll go, this is the question you may have. This is how you would do it based on the specs and the requirements. Like for instance, I know a lot of people, we get asked about things in relation to auditing and things, how we do that. So that's something that I would like to broach, not today. We don't have enough time on that as well, but that's something that I would, I'd definitely like to see us moving forward. But yeah, the main thing is, Damien, obviously being the chair as well, did you have anything that you'd like to mention before we start getting into any questions or anything like that at all?
Look, at the end of the day, I think we're all here because we just want to help each other. So, and I know since we kicked off the vet user group in October last year, I've had a really good sense that it's been working really well. Now, we haven't had any real cuddles, maybe not even any virtual cuddles, so don't get all weirded. But, I think it's been a very friendly group. We've worked really well together, and it sounds like it makes sense to me to, bring everything together. And hopefully gives us a bit more impact in terms of, you know, negotiating changes to Canvas that are going to work well for, you know, RTOs. So, you know, I've always sensed early on, because we have been with Canvas for quite a long time, that early on, you know, I'd talk to people, I'd say, oh, we're an RTO, and they'd go, well, what's that? Got no clue. But we've had a lot of RTOs come on board with Canvas. I don't know the numbers, but I know there's a lot. And I think that Canvas has become a lot more responsive to understanding what we do, because it is a little quirky, it is a little different to schools and universities. And I've seen some really positive changes, and I'm hoping there were plenty more in the wind and that we can keep driving that. And if the changes to this group is going to help do that, then I'm all for it.
Awesome. Thanks, Damien.
No worries.
And I'm not, as I said, I've done a little bit with a touch of the format, but I do understand that there was some things that you did set out to achieve in the last 12 months that you've done very well at. And Ruth kind of sent me a list of all the things that you've kind of achieved, which is really great. I suppose the next thing is that looking forward to the future, is there some of those things that you were aware of that weren't reached to the success that you wanted to? Are there some things that, you know, collectively we want to talk about? Or this is also a really great time. Obviously, everyone's been on Zoom now for what, 6 months? Let's just say, right? So we know how these things kind of roll. What is there something that we change the way that we actually do this user group? Do you think there's a better way that we can dissect and discuss these things online during this time? Because obviously we get an hour a month, which is fantastic. But obviously the really key thing that I'd like to get out of this is get a direction of where the group would like to have, key priorities of what that stuff needs to do. And if we can develop content, add it to the community. If we need to put it to product, we've got those lines now set up with a internal product manager now being selected in Australia, which is something that we've never had before, which is simply incredible. And Jackie's only been with us for 3 months, is it, Ruth? 3-4 months? And she's already done some incredible things for us. We just had a chat on Build on Last Attempt, actually, but that's as far as I'm going to take that comment. So yeah, I can see everyone smiling. Yeah, I know. And the other thing, to Ruth's point as well, and to Damien's statement as well about RTO, that is correct in the fact that when we first started, we probably didn't have the best grasp on the RTO market. But with people like Tori, Ruth, and previously before that, Amelia, that education has transcended into a lot of us as CSMs. I've had the privilege of going to VELG a couple of times. I've worked very closely with Kerry on quite a few projects, and Damien and I have run a few webinars and things like that before. So the more and more that we get out of this, I feel that there is more and more a point of like, this is actually a market segment that we need to focus on. And we do understand the nuances a little bit better of what we need to do. However, we still need to hear them from you. The whole point of this group is that we can then vote in voice instead of vote as individuals. So I think that's a really important part to kind of get into. So what I might do, and Ruth, if I feel like I'm jumping the gun here, please feel free to stop me. But is that we've got some questions that were actually asked from the forum that actually came in, or is there something else that someone else would like to bring up before we get started?
Look, that sounds fine to me, but I'll give others a chance to contribute in a second. But I want to dive into something, go off topic for a moment, Adam. One of the things I love about this group is we're a friendly bunch, and part of being a friendly bunch is please turn those videos on so we know what you look like. These brave people who already have their videos on. If you don't have a video, that's fine. I've noticed, who was it? Miles doesn't have one. That's cool, Miles. If you have a video, please show it, because, you know, I came on, I made a real effort today to look as horrible as possible. So the rest of you know that you look fantastic compared to me. But if you could throw your videos on, that would be great. This is as much begging as I intend to do today. Who wants to follow on from Adam's question? Any suggestions as to how we proceed today?
Yeah. So, questions straight up. Miles.
When creating an assessment and tick text box, can we insert a template?
when creating an assignment and ticking a text box, can we insert a template? So are you talking about inside like marking an assignment or actually creating one there, Miles? If you'd like to turn your microphone on.
Yeah, I'm on. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah, so right now I'm developing a fitness and they need a logbook. And what I would like to do is insert a template where the student can actually say the date that they undertook the practical, the time they undertook it, etc. So look, I've been using Canvas for, I don't know, maybe over a year and a half, etc., with another organisation as well. And I've not really built anything until I've started working at Entrepreneur. So I'm still sort of finding my way around the system. I know with Moodle that you can actually insert a text box within the area where a student answers the question. So are we able to do that in Canvas?
Damien?
Yeah, well, I'll have a stab. At it. Yeah. Miles, are you aware that you can put templates there that the students can download and then fill out the logbook and then upload it back to the system, or you're after something where you
Yes.
can fill it in as you go? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Fill it in as you go. I'm trying to prevent the download and upload again because it's annoying, as you
It
all
can be
know,
clunky.
and
Yeah.
especially if the student, doesn't have Microsoft Suite and they're using, the online versions, all the formatting goes everywhere. And then when they re-upload it, it's really a pain for the trainer to grade and find out where the actual answers are in that template.
Okay, so what you would like is something that's sitting there. They can fill in as they go, fill it in, leave, come back, fill it in a bit more, leave. That's the solution you're looking for. Is that correct?
That would be great.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really possible though. I suppose it's possible you could build a knowledge test or a quiz with lots of rows or something that could be filled in. I don't know if anyone's tried that as a solution to this. Any thoughts on how we can help Miles?
We use Microsoft Forms to do this. So the Microsoft form embeds in a Canvas assignment or a page, and a student can fill that in multiple times, and that populates a spreadsheet, which you can also embed and display.
You could probably do that with Google Forms too, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty clever, but I think one of Miles' concerns is that your students it sounds like your students don't have access to a lot of software. I suppose, is Google Forms free, generally speaking, if people go in and grab it? Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Damien, that's the advantage. I mean, if people are using like Word or Excel or something like that, using the Office 365 or Google LTI, they need to actually that email address needs to be registered users to that account for it to work. The good thing about forms like Google Forms or the Microsoft equivalent is that you can make them publicly facing. So in other words, no one has to have access from it. They can just simply go in there and type in their details and off they go. So in the back end, that creates like a kind of like a logbook, of a repository of information that you can use. So that's a really great option there for you, for sure.
Yeah, that sounds really cool to me. I think that would work. I suppose the other thing you'd have to think through as well is just some sort of notification process. So the student lets the assessors know when they want them to go and look at the form, when enough of the logbook is filled in or when it's completed. That's the other part of the equation here. But yeah, it sounds good to me. Who else would like to add to this?
I've seen one example working of it, is that there is an assignment that has got unlimited submissions at the end of the course, where then the student actually goes in there and submits on a weekly basis. And this is something they're advised of by the student, the teacher. So there might be like a weekly announcement that's automated to set up to go out every week to say, hey, make sure you complete your logbooks. And then they obviously put a submission in on top of a submission on top of a submission, which kind of builds that particular one out. So not obviously as maybe clean to obviously download for something along like that. Like a form's really good because I know you can export form responses directly into a CSV, sort by name, and then you should be able to chronologically go through what they've done. But yeah, I think probably the thing is there's nothing really native as it stands in Canvas that I'm aware of, but I would love to see yeah, any suggestions on it, because yeah, we have been asked that quite a few times actually.
There's a lot of chatter in the chat. Catherine says that she uses logbooks as well. The disability quals require log workplace hours. So Catherine, in a second, if you want to add something as to a solution you think that you use or might work for you, we'd love to hear it. Colleen and Ruth have also added suggestions here, and Kerry's really interested in this idea as well. So Catherine, is this something that you think you've got a solution for already?
No, except that it's a downloadable PDF document, because for us to log the workplace hours, the workplace supervisor has to sign that they've completed 120 hours in the workplace. So for the only workaround we've got is it's a PDF, they download it, they fill it in, the supervisor signs it, and then they scan it and upload it again.
Okay.
It's because we've had to have contact between the supervisor and the learner as well as the assessor. That's the only thing we can come up with. It's old school, but works okay.
Look, it's understandable when you got that third party involved as well. So I can see how that would work for you. Who else would like to add to this?
Damien, can I just jump in there? The comments from Colleen and Miles as well in terms of the table in a question, in a quiz, that would be so helpful to be able to set up a table, because there's always so many questions when you're building out an assessment where you might have a table and you want students to complete the missing items in the table. So you might have something down the left and something over the top, and then they've got to put in their examples in those boxes. And so at the moment, you're quite often having to turn that into a matching exercise, or you've got to redesign the question. So if we could look at the possibility of having a table that students can fill in the gaps on, that would be awesome.
Oh, that would be awesome. It would be really good if we could add that to new quizzes, the ability to have a table. And
that sounds like an amazing feature request.
It does. We're just floating it out there at the moment.
How's Ruth and I have both just gone dead quiet when we said that? dead quiet.
So if somebody wants to make a feature request and promote it to this group and specifically identify it to Adam and Ruth, will go for it. Do it.
I'll add it to the newsletter as well if you make that happen. But
I'll put a feature request in today.
Oh, maybe don't be that efficient, but yeah, you can.
Clap for Kerry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. There's nothing. Actually, no, I won't suggest that just yet until we actually see how it works in region. So I won't suggest something.
Okay, thank you. Ruth, what have you popped in the chat there? You've popped a link.
Just for how to put in submitted feature request in the new community, just because I know some people are struggling with the new community. So I'm trying to be positive in the new era and provide the enablement as opposed to the negativity. So that is how you would do it.
Is there a chance we're going back to the old school way of doing it?
Absolutely not.
No. So let's get on board with that program. Alexandra's got desperate issues. She says she's desperate for multiple session attendance option. I presume this is where you can tick that people have attended multiple sessions. Is that the thinking here, Alexandra? You can pop your microphone off and talk to us, would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's because we've got a morning session where we do theory and then an afternoon session where we do practical. Students will often bunk one session or the other. And because Canvas can only do the one attendance a day, it would be really, really helpful to do like a morning session, afternoon session, that kind of thing, to then track attendance for both sessions.
Okay, thanks, Alexandra. Is there somebody who's already solved this problem? I needed my cricket noise, didn't I?
It's probably through it, like there may be an LTI like ConnectSet or something that might be able to do it, I suppose, rather than being native Canvas. But
we use Google. We use Microsoft Forms again for this.
Natasha uses Microsoft Forms for everything. She's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
works
was
really
also
well.
going. I was also going to suggest a lot of schools did this during COVID as well. Is that they use the discussions forum as like a temporary way. So what basically happened was if there was a practical and it was being filmed, all the questions would be asked in a discussion, but you obviously had to participate in that to then open up the discussion. So that was a way that they kind of use it because they made it a graded, so they could actually see who was actually attending in there as well. So don't know if that's, you know, something that you may want to use as a possible way to, because you'd have 2 discussions a day. So that's how you could kind of use it. And then obviously put those discussions in an assignment group with a 0 rating, or if attendance is important to your course, give it a certain course rating. So.
Adam, could you then export out the results of that to say who was there?
100. Oh, yeah. So what you would do is that because the person's actually gone in and they've actually submitted, like in discussions, because they've started creating and it is graded, they actually have to give them a grade via the grade book, right? So you can actually give them like a standard, like it could be just as 1 out of 1. Did you attend, or are you competent, whatever, and click on that, and you can export that just as you could export with anything else in the grade book. So yeah, you could essentially do it in that particular forum. So that was something that we saw that was contributed a lot to by K-12s, because they actually set up classes for roll call, right? So in other words, people had to go into that class and they could, you know, just pull out one whole roll call of sections and everything like that as well. So something to consider as a possible workaround.
Thank you.
Any other ideas?
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if this is something that would be within scope of resource and that sort of stuff, but the A+ attendance is a tool that also plugs into Canvas, and that definitely does handle that sort of thing. So it's next level in terms of its features and what it can do. But yeah, if it's something that you need desperately, it might be worth exploring.
Is it relatively affordable, do you know, Ruth, or not sure?
It really depends on the number of users. They have a fairly, from a typical RTO sort of space, there's some RTOs only have 200 or 400 users and that sort of thing. And for them, it may not be, but they have a very, like their minimum level, what am I trying to say? Minimum like tier for how many users they have, and the pricing is high for some customers, but that's just what I've heard anecdotally. It's not something I'd be able to sort of confirm. So it would just depend on whether or not you had the right number of users to sort of warrant it.
Okay, what was the name again, please?
A+ attendance. I'll pop it in the chat and we'll put it in the meeting notes as well.
Thank you very much. All right, anything else on that question, or should we move on to another one? Are there desperate questions? Please follow on from Alexandra's example. Pop your questions in the chat. Otherwise, Adam's going to go to his list.
Ooh, I feel like a bit of a game show host. This is kind of cool. So
with that shirt, you are a game show host, Adam. I'll give you the tip.
I was honestly just trying to put some brightness in everyone's day, but I might have ruined it. So we'll just see. So let me just give it a get.
You've ruined nothing, friend. Nothing. Thanks for the link in the chat, Ruth.
Okay, so this is actually one that we get asked a lot. And we have a way that's dealing with it, but it's probably really good to you, is best practice for concluding short courses on Canvas. So are there any tips, tricks, or traps? So that sounds like very, very, very thoughtful, as in they've thought about it. So best practice for concluding short courses on Canvas. I will throw the floor open before we start answering it.
So do they mean concluding as in the official conclude course or end course in Canvas, or just finishing up triggers and those sorts of things?
It just literally says best practice for concluding short courses. I don't know if Sarah on our chat group here today?
Normally, Sarah threw an apology to a few of us.
Oh, that's right. That's correct.
She started. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's an original member.
Okay. Good.
She's a serial lurker here. She's always.
Well, maybe we can discuss probably both, Kerry, in a really short amount of time.
Lead off, Kerry. Go on. Give us your best shot at it.
Well, I was just wondering if it was just concluding as in Canvas, or if you needed any triggers to be saying, okay, well, now everything's done. And so what I quite often do or see, if it's to conclude the course and to know that the students finished everything, it's putting in a quiz where they're giving a response that, yes, I have finished everything to the best of my ability, those sorts of things, so that you can then follow through with any other processes that you might have. I suppose the other model of, if we conclude a course where we actually finish it and it's, you know, closing access, I don't think I've really done that very much. I did initially, and just made sure, because it was an end cutoff date for students, just to make sure that they knew that from that particular date they weren't going to have access anymore, and make sure that we'd finished all processes that needed to be done before concluding, because there are certain things you can no longer do once it's concluded.
And what
Yes.
I would add to this one is that Sarah, just because I've worked with Sarah, they use VetTrack as their student management system. So their cohorts are managed by sections. So yep, Colleen, amazing. Term dates, that's absolutely the right way to go in a lot of situations. But if you are using a section-based model, you'd want to utilize the section end dates as opposed to course or term. That's sort of the hierarchy that Canvas goes in. You can set a term access dates, and then if you want to override that at a particular course level, you can with the course start and end dates. And if you want to go more granular and override it for the section, you can do that with the section end dates. And with things like the VetTrack integration, for example, that rely on sections, that would be the best way to manage that. If it is what you're talking about in the second component there, Kerry, around actual access. And then there are, as you've said, options in Canvas around what level of participation or type of access they have past that point.
And I was just going to reiterate that that's a really important thing to understand as well, is that once the student, like, you're obviously, the way, like, a lot of people ask this from an accounts-based point of view, like, what counts as an active user, right? And that's basically anyone who logs into Canvas. So here's a suggestion. So if your course goes for a year and you're getting charged X amount, but your course goes for 2 years, you need to factor in that they're going to be in Canvas for 2 years, right? These are the sorts of things that you really need to consider when you're enrolling, because we don't really mind. You can log into 1 million courses inside your instance. We don't really mind. We're just worried about the people that are actually going into the system. The other key thing to also take into, and this is something that we strongly encourage, is to leverage off your student management system, like a VetTrack or an Accelerator or a Job Ready Plus, as much as you can. Make that the voice of truth, because that will greatly assist you in being able to conclude things in bulk. I know there's a great article on the Canvas community around managing rolling enrollments, about teaching people to bring those things into cohorts and things like that. But that's probably the best way to kind of help control that. As I said, there are some options that you can do within the course. So once that end date is reached, whether it's the course date or the section, what sort of involvement the student has with the course from that point on. Is it view only access, right? Or have they been, or do they cut off all access? Because if you're cutting off all access, you'd obviously not want them to then access Canvas as a whole, which then leads itself to another process to obviously update their user accounts to ensure that they can't log into the system. So yeah, happy to elaborate that. You can always book in a call with us to have those sort of stuff. But that is a very popular question, is what's the best way to ensure that you're actually making sure that your sections are getting concluded on time, so you don't have people wandering around your instance.
Can I ask the dumb question here, please, Adam? Because I'm picking up on what Colleen's written. And so with sections, we can allocate certain sections within the same course with different dates. Is that correct?
Okay, yeah, so that's correct. So what you can do is, the way that it works on a sliding scale. So we'll just talk about dates first, and then I'll go into the functionality of it. So the term date is set in the first instance, but if you then set a course date, you override the term date. Okay. If you then set a section date, you override the course date. Okay. So in other words, you can really dive down and work out the access to the course. The reason why that is then really cool is that obviously I'm pretty sure all the main SISs in the RTO space work with sections. Please, Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 90% of them all work with sections as well.
Love sections.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, I had a look at that the other day. That's really cool. Is that when that's going into that they're controlling the sections, you can then give your assignments, right? Availability based on that section. You can give discussions and availability section. So you can really, really, really control the student's journey for their assessments and their credentials through that sort of stuff. That coupled obviously with prerequisites and requirements. So as Kerry mentioned before, having that declaration as a quiz at the end of the course, obviously they can only get to that if they've then been marked competent in everything up to that point. So you can kind of control the path a little bit different, even though the user's individual and they're learning individually. Using the sections, you can help direct them with where they need to go.
Cool. Cool. Questions, comments, advice?
Unless there's a better way to do it, I'm more than happy to hear it.
Dan, when you write sub in your comment, you've
Submission.
written, nah, there's sub. What do you mean
So
by
the-
sub, sorry?
Responding to the one above, so responding to, where is it?
Oh,
To
yeah, so
Miles.
the
Miles.
submissions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
submission
right.
data is retained right in the middle. I'm currently playing around with this because I need to do this at the student level, not by section. We have rolling enrollments and we have no sections or any type of cohorting, or even terms. So I need to conclude by section. So I'm currently investigating this. But first I have to clean up our database.
Yeah, I was about to say as well, and this is something that we stress to everyone as well, is that when you go to create a user, even if you're not using a student management system, that'll do the dirty work for you. But if you're manually creating this, please ensure you use a SysID, whether it's the student's email address or whatever that may be. That will then allow you to use the CSV upload file. So Dan, for instance, if you had to bulk include a couple of thousand students, right?
And I do.
You literally, you can literally use that SysID to then conclude all of them using the the enrollment CSV, right?
Yeah, my challenge is going to be automating it off our CRM.
Okay, well that's good luck with that.
Thanks.
They're a bit of a bespoke use case, Adam.
Okay,
That's great.
Cool.
Love
That's
my
all right.
life.
We're getting
That's
there.
all
You're
right.
doing a great job, Dan.
That's
Thanks.
all right. There are ways it can be done. It can be done. It's just
Oh,
we need to.
Yeah.
It's the playing around with it, but it's it's a really important question because obviously we just want to make sure that your users get to see the course for the time they've actually paid to allocate it, and that's really important. So it's ultimate control to you.
I love Miles' question as well, and Ruth's given the answer there. It's pretty cool in Canvas how you can do what you need to do with concluded students. They can still access and have a look at how they went and have a look at their old results and stuff, and yet we can see it as well very easily. And you can, that little toggle in the grade book, in the mark book, where you can turn on active and inactive students and concluded and non-concluded students, so you can see them without having to, bring them back in and then conclude them again, is really, really helpful for those who haven't discussed it. The little hamburger thing at the top of the
Where's
first
that?
column. Yeah, it's a little hamburger thing, the 3 dots at the top of the first column. So if you
Okay.
want to see the results for concluded students, you can.
I've always called it a hamburger. I've never understood that, Damien.
Well, it's got
Yeah.
2 buns and meat in the middle, but it used to be
hamburger's
3
the
dots.
lines.
Now it's just 3
3
dots.
Damien,
It's
Damien.
short lines.
The 3 lines you call a hamburger menu.
Hamburger.
The 3 dots is not a hamburger menu.
It's a little skinny
It's a
hamburger.
slider.
I call
I've
it
heard it.
Popeye.
Slider burger.
There we go. We'll call it the slider. We'll call it the slider. Click on the slider icon. I'll be like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
The traffic
Found
light.
it.
The mini
I can
burger.
go with that. Slider works with me.
Is there a way to get them to get concluded users to display in the people section in the course nav? Or because I know you can go off to the previous users, wherever it is. What is it?
So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to see?
So in a course, for example, you go to people, and the way to find prior enrollments is go the peppercorns and then view prior enrollments. That will show you all previous concluded users. Is there a way to include concluded users in the actual people list?
Oh, in the admin people list?
Yeah,
Okay. So
because I can see
Here's a s-
inactive ones.
yeah. No, you can't.
So in the course, you have to go to prior enrollments to be able to see that. And that's a really deliberate build so that it keeps the people list looking clean, primarily for, you know, if you're thinking about this exact use case where people are using rolling enrollments and cohorts with sections, and you might have however many hundreds of students in every section, as they are finishing, you don't want to have that people page show everybody that's ever existed in the course. You might, and I understand that, but the general feedback, it was a design not to do that. So you can still access them via previous enrollments button.
The only problem is that that's not searchable for me, and we have thousands.
Yeah.
So I suppose I can look at submitting that as a feature request.
You could. I think the other thing to do would just be, it depends on what you're trying to do, but you could certainly run an enrollments provisioning report and filter it for that course to see who has been in there previously and has a concluded status.
You could definitely do an API call by course and also pull those details out for sure.
Yeah, I don't have any API coding experience, and it's ad hoc pulling of the extract takes up my time when I have ad hoc requests coming in for that information. That's all good.
Dan.
It is what it is.
I didn't have any API experience till 3 weeks ago, and I kind of figured it out. So if I can do it wearing a shirt this bad, you can definitely do it.
So, folks, there's the challenge for next month. We all need to become API experts.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, but as soon as you've done that, you need to wear a Hawaiian shirt and have a beach background as well. Not suggesting that you're not actually at the beach, Adam, but maybe you're not. There's a important question from Miles in the chat. I think the answer is no, along the lines of what Kerry has answered. Miles, if they go and have a little bit of a look and don't do anything, I don't think we get charged extra. Is that right, Canvas instructor experts?
Okay.
Yeah, this is one thing that I was going to say. It's important to know.
I think it's a very difficult one for us to talk about, particularly in a recording, because it's going to be different based on people's contracts. And also not everyone's on the same type of subscription model. So there are different subscription models that we offer, which also have different definitions. So I don't think it's wise for us to comment on this now, but certainly you can reach out to your CSM and we can talk about that based on your individual contract.
Ruth's taking the fifth on this, folks. Contact your...
That's very quick. Do you know she was so quick? Because I was about to... She was very quick. I was about to open my mouth and go, and then Ruth was just like, yeah, that's why we work really well together, because she stops me from walking to bear traps like that. Very good. Very good. But yeah, please feel free to book in some time. If you're with Priority Services, you can email us at CS Team APAC and Instructure. If you've got an individual CSM, please feel free to reach out to them as well. We're more than happy to have this discussion with you, so you understand how the system works and how it's and how you can maximize to ensure that you're getting the best out of your investment from a user and account point of view. So please feel free to do that.
Do we need a new question, Adam? We've got 20 minutes left. I know, 40 minutes gone. It flies by so fast.
Oh, okay. This one it's a bit of a, Colleen. Cool. Ripped into that. Go for it. She saw a vulnerability and went for it. There you go. Damien, do you want to read that out?
I will read it. We have a problem where if somebody changes their email address in Canvas, it leaves the old one there and no one can delete it. So it adds this, if they add another email address, is what you're saying here, I think, Colleen, this old one stays there and no one can delete it. You can't get rid of it, Colleen. It's stuck there forever, like some sort of ninja hiding in the dark.
And people who don't understand their notifications are still getting notifications from the old one as well as the new one.
Can't you hit that little
there's
little bin?
No, there's no bin.
Ruth's desperately jump in on this. Go, Ruth.
Is this a user that's provisioned via a student management system?
No, I do all our students by upload with CSVs.
Okay, because that can be part of the reason when we see this is because the system is saying this is the email that's been given to you by your account, so you're not able to delete it or change it. It's part of your sort of provisioned credentials.
I think I even actually contacted the help desk and they never got back to me until I forgot about it until I had another one recently. It's like, oh, that's right.
I would have gone the account settings too, Dan, for what it's worth.
Yeah, there is a toggle there that says users can delete their institution assigned email address. which if it is assigned by SAS, I think then it prevents it, but we've got ours toggled off. And even as an administrator, I can't go and delete it until I've assigned it another primary.
But I can't even delete it as admin.
Yeah.
Just put, Colleen, that might be worth booking in some time with us to
Okay.
get a sec so we can understand what's actually going on there. Because there could be a number of different things. Yeah, because you haven't got self-registration turned on, have you? Just out of curiosity. Okay, cool. I just wanted to check. Okay.
I think we've got another question or comment here from Miles. If a student changes email within Canvas and then you enroll them in another course, does this make them a new student and then are we charged for another user? Okay, so they change their email and they enroll in another course. Does they make them a new user?
And
I suppose.
there's multiple factors to this depending on the subscription model that you're on. But on the baseline user subscription, if your contract's based on users, then your user, we look at it based on users, not on enrollment. So the user ID won't change even if they change their email. They'll still be the same user, / number in the system. So their actual identity in the system is the same. They just have a different contact address. So that's the only thing there. So if they are, it's not based on how many courses they're in. If you're on a user subscription model, it's based on the contract year. So if your contract year is January to December and they access a course during that time, or 10 courses, then they will be counted as one user during that period. If they then don't log in after December the 1st that year, and the following year rolls over, and this is an example, not everyone's contract years are obviously January to December, but if they then didn't log in the next contract year, then they wouldn't be counted as a user in that time. So it depends on when they're accessing, not the types of courses they have or how many they have.
And that answer is all based upon them changing their email address, Ruth, as opposed to coming in with a brand new email address and a brand new user.
Correct.
Which would be a different answer.
If they're provisioned as a separate new user with a new everything, then they obviously would be a new user ID in the system and it would be a separate user.
That is.
Because I suspect that there's some of you out there like me who actually are 2 or 3 different people within our instance because we love to test everything with lots of different email addresses and stuff.
There's a student view for that.
I know there's a student view, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Not when you want to take screenshots sometimes.
Yeah.
Ruth, can I just ask a little bit further on that? Because I've used, as I've said previously, I've used Canvas in 2 different roles. The current role, I don't have much to do with the enrolling of the students. In my previous role, I did. So previously, and I believe the accounts are set up very similar, the same. When I would enroll students using email addresses, right? Adding people and using their email address, which is also their SIS number. Now, with that email, if the student gave me an email that was the original email and then they've gone in and they've changed that in Canvas in between, when I use the original email to enroll them into a new unit or Canvas terminology course, they would not show up as an existing user. And it would actually ask me to put their name in again. So,
that's in the UI when you're adding via manually in the UI in a course.
Yes.
And when you're doing that, are you at the top, there's those 3 options. There's email address, there's login ID, and there's SIS ID. Are you just using the email address option there?
Yes, email.
Yeah. So if they change I would just always use the SIS ID option for that, because the SIS ID won't have changed. A user can't change their SIS ID, and that's what is their unique identifier as a user. So if you're using email address and you've done an institution provisioned email address, or you've done it based on what they provided you, and then they change it, then that's just going to change their contact email. It's not going to change their SIS ID in this case. So if you're using the SIS ID option in the manual UI, when you're adding new users, it will still find the original email address, even though they might have changed their contact method in their user settings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No worries at all. It's a great question. And Colleen, I know what the issue is on yours, and the reason it's not allowing them to do that is because the setting that Daniel spoke about, the users can delete their institution assigned email address is unchecked in your instance. So if you change that, then they'll be able to do so.
Colleen just got a money's worth. Who wants to line up next? Is there another question?
That was dead set. That sounded like a circus. Like that was awesome. Wanted to hit on the bill. I've got one question left from the forms that came through. So this is from Lucy at YWAM. I'm currently working with some software developers to custom build our student management system in Salesforce, our CRM, so we can integrate it with Canvas. One question I have is how other RTOs are managing to match performance criteria from assessments to student outcomes in their student management system. Is based on students getting 100% on marks, or is it by the outcomes function and using the performance criteria? I know that some advanced student management systems sync with the training.gov.au, but I'm wondering if there are any anomalies to this. What about performance criteria that have several parts that need to be assessed within that single criteria? So that's a bit of a big one, so feel free to digest.
I'm happy to open.
Go for it, Dan.
You maybe post that in the chat as well, Adam, just so people can read it.
Oh, yep.
So the way we do it is we don't actually use rubrics or outcomes. We simply go off the marking and gradebook and do basically our integration backwards sweep from Canvas up to our CRM. Checks for 100%, and it also checks our comments column for assessment complete just as a two-factor, because we don't want someone to accidentally mark it complete or 100% and competent and then have it go up to their record of learning without that being what's supposed to happen. So yeah, that's what we use. That's for, and then our integration between our reporting body, which is NZQA, and us, sort of, there's a REST API that sits between them.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Could you, what you said about making comments before completing a student, do you mind just repeating what you said about that? So a student doesn't complete too early?
So our job that runs, which is, people call it the integration or whatever, it checks the total column in Gradebook for 100% or competent, because I've started using a letter grade for competent. Ruth. So it's got those two criteria, but it also checks the last comment in SpeedGrader for the words assessment complete, and our assessors, part of their business process is to put those words in there. It's just as a final, yeah, I've viewed this. We're running into problems now where we're starting to use quizzes that are entirely machine graded. So we may have to remove that for certain, or figure out some other rule. But up until now, all of our quizzes have had human lay eyes on them, all of our submissions have had a human lay eyes on them. And as part of that, those checks and balances, we ask them to put in those words, because it's easy to poll a string like that, just a string of characters that says assessment complete. But yeah, that was put into place by my predecessor, and it seems to be working so far.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Lisa, I can't really help you with this one because we do all of our mapping outside both systems. So basically, we're looking at full completion of every task. If they do that, it matches up with our mapping. So we've got all old school on documents external to Canvas and our student management system. Who else has delved into this side of,
we do the same thing. We have like an assessor guide with all of our compliance mapping on it, and then we have our assessment, and those assessments are loaded into Canvas. Because we're relatively new to Canvas, what we've done is we've actually created an extra column in our mapping documents, in our assessor guides, because for obvious reasons, some questions you can't always line up exactly the same. You may end up with a couple of extra questions. So we actually have just a separate line for Canvas, and we just document where the changes are and the questions, and that just links it back. So if we get audited, we can just bring out the mapping document and say, well, this is the differences, but they are actually mapped and pretty much the same.
That should work from my perspective. Who else would like to contribute here? I'm practicing my cricket. We appear to have nothing. Okay, Lucy, that's it. That's the best we got for you today. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. Good place to start. Thank you.
Yeah, Miles, sorry, where do you put assessment complete within a quiz? That's in the feedback, is it, Dan? Or
Yeah. So if I'm looking at SpeedGrader currently, there's the comments on the right-hand side. So yeah, feedback. We're starting to use PDFs as well. So there's the annotations within the PDF viewer as well. But I think we're leaning towards just sticking with that feedback column.
yeah, Colleen does the same, she says. Awesome. We've got time for one more quick question, Adam.
I think that's it from my questions. Just further to that, Dan, when you said put the comment in, do you mean to put that in the submission comments or put that in next to an outcome comment, just to be
submission comments?
Sure? Yep,
so
just wanted to clarify
using that continuous stream.
Awesome. I just want to, because I know some people here do use outcomes, and there is a commenting feature next to that outcome inside the rubric. So I just wanted to be perfectly clear on that to avoid any confusion.
I would use something like that if we were able to have the same submission, but we have to grant additional attempts currently, which loses all that sort of thing. We now use start a new attempt.
While we've got the suggestion of outcomes there, Ruth and Adam, what do you think in terms of the difference between using outcomes to build out like an observation checklist, so each item is an outcome imported into the rubric, as opposed to using outcomes for like an achievement of an entire unit? If you know what I mean.
I don't think it's wise to say you have to do it one way or the other, because obviously rubric criterion and outcomes are designed to be used flexibly across different sectors and that sort of thing. So I think it opens up for lots of different ways you can do it. But my recommendation is that anything that is assessed in at a single point in time, like it's only done once and it's not that would be a rubric criterion if it's a task specific item. But anything that you're wanting to track across time, across multiple attempts, across, that would belong much more suitably as an outcome.
Yeah.
So things that they're looking to, like working towards from an achievement perspective, that yes, that would be an outcome in a vocational setting. That was how I would recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of the way that I've sort of gone with it as well, that I would build in an outcome for that unit of competency rather than student washes hands.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Because that's where the power of outcomes is. It's more around, you've got the grade book, and then you've got, which is obviously all your tasks and just the raw data and information about how they went on those isolated attempts, whereas outcomes is a great way in the learning mastery, that flip version of the grade book, to be able to see progress towards those things across time or across attempts. And I think that that's really where the power of outcomes comes in. It's not to say that I've seen some people build their rubrics out and everything's an outcome, and that's fine if you want to use it that way. It's a lot, but that's fine. But I think there's a missing point in how you can sort of differentiate the purpose of the two.
Yeah, because like the purpose of using the outcomes is so that you can export and see and track. And do you need to track every single item on an observation checklist?
Exactly. And it's really helpful then. People, I think, often just look at the admin and how we're actually mapping and recording this stuff. But from a student perspective, the power of them being able to see the learning mastery side of, they can see their assignment tasks and the individual things they're doing towards that unit or that cluster or that qualification. But from the learning mastery side of their marks area, they can see, I'm not yet competent in this skill group or in this unit or in this, the things that they're actually working towards. I think sometimes it's just, here's all the stuff I have to do to then get this qualification. Whereas it can help them understand a bit more about how those things are packaged together and all the, like, yes, you might have completed this unit, but you're still in progress. You're not yet mastered the skills for these other two things, which lead to this bigger achievement. So I think it's helpful for them to understand.
Yep.
I think the other thing is our unit of competencies are also written with overtime, or demonstrate competency over time.
Exactly.
Or on
so
2
many
different occasions, 4 different occasions, 6 different occasions. So
and again,
to allow for that tracking.
And outcomes can be so powerful with that, saying you won't be mastered on this until you get this mark over 4 different attempts, as opposed to, you know, an individual rubric, which you can only comment on that single time.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat from Kimberly. Can you assign multiple tasks into one outcome? And the answer is...
Haven't read, sorry. Can you assign multiple?
Can you assign multiple tasks into one outcome? I believe the answer is yes. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can. As I say, there's no one cookie cutter way that you have to build your outcomes out. However, the scoring and the way that outcomes are sort of, it's fairly flexible. You can have it so there's only 2 possible options. There's not yet competent and 0, and then there's competent, which is worth 1, and that's what you would tie your mastery criteria with. So if you have multiple things in the one outcome, it would just be a judgment of, like, how do you decide? You might need more tiers to say they're partly competent, like they're competent on 2 out of the 3 things that are listed on this outcome. So it can become a little bit unclear or a bit messy about what you're referring to that they have gained competency in and what they haven't if you have multiple things in the one.
We've got one more quick question from Miles. Miles says she uses sections with due dates, and once the due date is expired, students cannot access the resubmit button. But the clever little folks try now uploading assessments through the feedback. You know how you can attach attach a document to the feedback? They're trying that as a little workaround. I tell them, don't do that. We're not going to accept that.
Yeah, well, they can't see it anyway. They can't mark it.
We're not going to see it.
Have to download it.
Unless you're some idiot like me who receives every submission comment from every student in every course and goes through it every day. Sometimes there's some wisdom and pearlers in there that we need to respond to. But I don't know, can we just tell them, don't do that? Is there another solution here?
I'd like to know too, because we encountered that same thing where students upload files to the comments. Our assessors, God bless them, go ahead and download it and mark it in real time, like print it out and mark it in the real.
Well, you can obviously extend submissions, like a separate one to individuals, right? You can do that through the assignment if you want to. I think that's probably going to be safer, especially for audit purposes, because you can't, like, if you're going to have to download that, like, I mean, your teacher's doing it smart. They're going in, probably acting as a student, uploading it again, then marking it, and then that just sounds like a lot of work, the fact that I've just said that. But I think there's probably something that you could explain at the start of the course saying, you know, you just shouldn't do this. I mean, we can't turn off the submission comments. Well, at least I know you can't turn off the submission comments. That's a really important part of Canvas, is that you can have 2-way communications with your students, but that would make me form something of like a student declaration at the start of courses. I don't know how many people have onboarding courses or things like that, but I would stress that if you do submit something via here, it won't be accepted. Simple. Sorry, I'm a bit cutthroat with that sort of stuff. I mean, if you are spending all this time to devise a process and get the most out of this, you shouldn't be therefore giving exceptions to make the actual functionality, especially if you're outsourcing your marking to other people. That's costing you, you know, time and money.
Yeah, Miles, you could probably solve this problem by just bringing Colleen in for one day, based on what she's written in the chat. Colleen will come. She'll sort it. She's on the Damien train for this one. Not ideal, but thank you so much. Not enough time, I understand. Kerry's popped a link in the chat. Now, I'm guessing that's respect to Kimberly. Yes. Thank you, Kerry. I think we're good. I think we've cleared everything. Are we finished now?
Can I put an agenda item in for next time? Because I was troubleshooting a trainer through some Canvas stuff, and that was why I was late. I had a question about, and this can be probably something that people need time to think. We obviously have state funding, and obviously we have to comply with ASQA, but how do people get around, or how do people set up different checkpoints to tick off those compliance things? So let's say, for example, debt, we actually have to have a commencement date and we have to show the commencement date. But what is commencement? Is it when the student is enrolled? Is it after they've done a certain point? So I don't need an answer now, but maybe if we can put that on for the next one, like, and the declarations of authenticity, those sort of, all those nitty gritty little things that we have to do to check boxes. It'd be nice to see what other RTOs or other people in the industry do, because we're navigating the minefield now.
Look, I'd be interested to see what other RTOs do with onboarding as well. They came up before, and you've just followed up on that there, Megan. So maybe that's a good thing to talk about next time as well. Best practices onboarding. All right, more links in the chat from Ruth. She just pulls these out of her brain from everywhere. Adam, I think it's been a good session. Would you agree?
It's my first time here, so yeah, I feel that's been like, I prefer these over a webinar where it's just straight talking and straight presenting. To be able to deep dive and provide some context to some of those questions is really great. I have put those two down for an agenda item, just to let you know that I will update the page in the Canvas community with this, and I'll also upload the transcripts from the chat as well. So you've got a list of that as well. Yeah, we'll provide all that for you. So if you do give us a bit of time, we should have that up hopefully by Friday afternoon. So you could have that all ready to watch back and review. But yeah, there's some great topics for next one. I'll also set up a page for next week as well, the next one as well. And I'll also give you a new Google form as well, so you can start asking those questions. And Damien, it might be worthwhile if I give you access to that in future, so you can probably see, you know, what's coming as well.
Sure. That'll work for me. Awesome. Okay, any other final words, Ruth? Adam, we done? We're done.
Going once.
Thanks, everyone. See you again next month. Turn your videos on next time. Please, please, I want to see your smiling faces. I can look even worse if I need to. I will be.
Please do. Please, try your worst. Try your worst. I had to put this shirt on. I had to put this shirt on. Thanks again, everyone. Look forward to speaking to you soon. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to your CSM.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.